Hello and welcome to Selsey Internet Radio. In this week's podcast we have Pat Reed, the Selsey shopper, and then Mike's news from the Selsey Information Exchange. After that, Mary tells us what's on in Selsey, and Lynn's recipe is a lemon mousse. After that, we finish with Hugh and Pat discussing the Writers' Circle, so we've got a really exciting podcast for you this week.
Okay, we've got Pat Reed in the studio this morning, and she's going to be the Selsey shopper. So what have you found this month then?
Hello Hugh. This month I've been sampling a few of our excellent cafes in the High Street where you can get a tasty lunch. And for a small town we certainly have some great eating establishments, whether you want just a sandwich or a hot meal. My first stop was at Cafe Grumpy's, which is situated at the far end of Penny Lane, opposite the old cinema in the High Street. This cafe has been given a new modern look and has a large garden with a children's play area. They have a daily specials board, an extensive menu. Like most of the cafes in the High Street, they do Sunday roasts and also a takeaway service as well as eat-in. They're open 7 days a week from 8 until 4 p.m. Cafe GB is a little further up the High Street, going south on the left. They also have a children's play area and garden where dogs are also allowed. They have free Wi-Fi so you can check your emails over a coffee, and their loyalty card will give you a free coffee when it's fully stamped. They have a 10% discount on senior citizens' meals, and also gluten-free meals are available. For those early birds, you can order any 2 breakfasts from the menu at Cafe GB for $9.90 every day between 7am and 9:30am, with the added bonus of unlimited tea, coffee and toast. It sounds as though you may not require lunch if you take advantage of that offer. They're also available for functions and parties, and their sister restaurant is De Levante, also in the High Street, which is a Mediterranean restaurant and tapas bar where the tapas are delicious and very generous portions. A few doors up from Cafe GB is Waves Cafe and Sandwich Bar. They also have a garden, a loyalty card for coffee, again getting a free one when the card is stamped. Their menu is extensive and they also offer fresh cut sandwiches to take away. They have a make-it-yourself breakfast as well as their normal breakfast menu where you can choose what you want on your plate as each item is priced separately. And they will also provide a buffet service for children's parties, house parties, weddings and funerals. A little further up the High Street is the Liquid Merchant, which is a unique combination in Selsey of a coffee shop where you can get light snacks such as sandwiches and cakes and a choice from a huge range of coffees. There's an off licence with very competitively priced wines at £10 and £12 for 3 bottles, and also a convenience store at the back where you can purchase from an extensive range of European foods. They provide free Wi-Fi and newspapers while enjoying a coffee, etc. on one of their comfy sofas. Their loyalty card will get you either a drink from their hot menu or cold menu when it's fully stamped. I also visited Tuppenny Rice, the Victorian tea room a little further up the High Street. As well as their usual delicious menu and shop selling preserves, cakes and baking ingredients, to name but a few, they now serve a fish supper on Thursdays and Fridays when they're open until 8:30 p.m. I'm told this is very popular with fresh fish from Selsey's East Beach. And don't forget their delicious cream teas, which are available every day, including fresh strawberries and homemade scones. Last but not least, I visited the Riviera restaurant on the Selsey Parade. This is the largest of our cafe restaurants with plenty of seating available even at the busiest times of year. They also have free Wi-Fi, parking at the rear of the building, and have loyalty cards for coffee, breakfast, carvery, OAP meals, small meals and children's meals. I recently had a free carvery after purchasing 5 in the past, which was marvellous value. They serve a senior citizen special menu with a good choice, including tea or coffee for £5.90. Their carvery is Thursday and Sunday, and much as you can eat for £9.50, £7.50 if you're a senior citizen, or a smaller portion for £6. Their large scone or tea cake with tea or coffee is only £1.70. I hope that's worked up an appetite and that you take advantage of all these wonderful eating places, which in some cases are cheaper than cooking at home. Any that I haven't mentioned this month, I'll be visiting in the near future. Tune in next month for more news from your Selsey shopper.
Thanks a lot, Pat. See you next month.
Well, thank you for that, Pat. And now we go over to Mike with news from Selsey Information Exchange.
Right, we've got Mike Nichols here this morning, and he's going to tell us about some of the activities going on in Penny Lane. Where is Penny Lane?
Well, it's just opposite the old cinema, where the play The End of the Journey was performed so successfully during August.
And Grumpy's is down there.
It's a little alleyway with some very significant shops and people. You can get your hair cut there, you can buy children's clothes, you can rent a property, you can get a superb breakfast, you can get a taxi, and there's a little office called the Selsey Information Exchange.
Which is where you hide half the time.
That's where I use as a little office quite a bit of the time.
Okay.
So does the Selsey Youth Worker, and quite a number of organisations use it as a base, and there's a lot goes on there.
Right. Well, I know the coffee's brilliant because I've had some. So now then, so what are you going to tell us then?
Well, I think it's just helpful to say that it is an information point, and complements the work that the library does, the town hall does, the Selsey Centre does, and so on, in providing visitors and newcomers with an indication of what activities and organisations are available in Selsey. And we advertise a lot of events. We keep a community diary where we hope people will let us know about dates they're planning, and they can actually come in and see it or view it online.
So that means you can avoid a clash, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and so that everything that happens, can complement one another, and people can work together. It's that sort of spirit of partnership working. And
so you wouldn't have 4 harvest festivals on the same day?
Well, I think that if even churches can sort of complement what they're doing and work together, it just gives everyone a chance to support more widely, doesn't it? And attend.
I think the idea of a community diary is brilliant because it would help everybody.
Yeah, it just helps us all to think of each other and to work together in that kind of way. Of course, Selsey Information Exchange is also the base for Selsey Internet Radio, which we're kind of recording for now. And I'm sure that increasing numbers of folk are listening to the variety of podcasts now. The weekly one, the specials that we do, the youth podcast, and new ones that are to come.
Well, we're going to do one for people with impaired vision, aren't we?
Indeed, sharing news in that sort of forum, and it's a good opportunity for folk to both hear what's going on and hear interviews with interesting people in the town. Okay.
We were talking last week about cycling, particularly around the Medbury, I think you call it the Medbury realignment scheme. I think I refer to it as a managed retreat around the lagoon. Brian Seeger seemed to think that access to that was quite difficult and involved a long bike ride to get there in the first place. Have you got any comments on that?
Well, I chaired a meeting yesterday organised by the Selsey Cycle Network, of which Brian is a member, with a number of interested representatives, people from, say, the charity Sustrans, who look to help cycle path access all over the country, people from the town council, the district council, the county council, and the purpose was to try and get agreement about a series of things that need to be achieved in order for there to be an accessible, well-signed leisure cycle path from Selsey to Chichester. Today there is a further couple of meetings that are addressing the same sorts of general issues. Because obviously, if you're taking an 8-mile stretch into Chichester, and that's only measured up the road, the cycle path would be longer, you're obviously dealing with quite a lot of landowners and quite a lot of significant authorities, not just councils, but the RSPB, the Environment Agency, the water boards, those kind of things. So I think the whole process has got to be handled with a lot of mediation, a lot of compromise, a lot of negotiation in order to achieve what's wanted. Now, the meeting yesterday was quite united, and Brian's concerns about well-signed access through Bun Leisure, that was agreed, but of course that's going to have to be skillfully negotiated. The possibility of an alternative access through Golf Links Lane, that's being addressed with appropriate landowners, the sort of danger points, particularly at Ferry Corner, that's being addressed in a number of different ways. The whole idea of a good surface so that you don't have to have a mountain bike necessarily to use this cycle path. So there's a whole series of things, right up to, Chichester that are being addressed. And I think people would be surprised at all the activity that's going on, because I think there is a united feeling that this has got to be achieved. On the back of it, we've got to achieve a decent commuter route from Selsey to Chichester, so that people who want to commute for work can do so in a reasonably quick time and can do it safely, and so that children can cycle with their parents in a safe kind of environment, all helping us with the general theme of exercise and fitness that cycling brings.
Well, I think if, with the price of fuel going up as fast as it is, and the cost of running a car, people are turning more and more to cycling anyway. And apart from the need for an obese population becoming slightly slimmer by riding bicycles.
Yes.
It's a win-win, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I think all of those things, count. And in a more general sense, one of the charities that uses the office in Penny Lane as a base is Sports Stream, which runs quite a number of community sports and exercise activities, and 16 school clubs at lunchtimes, after school and in the evenings, to try and help children, largely free of charge or perhaps just paying £1 a session, to be active, to enjoy, team games, team sport, that kind of thing, and participate. And it's all about addressing this, issue which we constantly are made aware of by the government, of how we need to look after our bodies and get fit.
How far are we away, do you think, from a commuter route to Chichester?
Well, I think that the united feeling of the meeting yesterday is that we need to focus on achieving the leisure route.
Of course.
But on the back of that, there will be an equally determined effort to achieve a commuter route. And where those two things might coincide, then they will certainly have both in mind.
Okay.
So I think definitely the leisure routes first, because that's all about the tourist strategy for the Medway realignment and the Pagham Harbour. But the commuter route is a very significant thing, particularly with increased housing development and all that goes with that.
And of course, in any case, quite a number of people are cycling to Chichester on the 2145 now, aren't they?
They are, and one wonders sometimes for their safety.
Well, I've done it.
Certainly it creates an element of frustration for drivers. And it seems to everyone, I think, that wherever that can be separated out so that everyone can be safe, allowed to travel, in a helpful way, the better that comes about.
I can remember that when I first did the cycle from Selsey to Chichester, I'd always wondered as a driver why cyclists rode so far away from the curb. Having actually done it, I now know, because all the potholes and everything else are so close to the roadside that you need to be out, and otherwise you're going to do yourself some damage on the bicycle.
Yeah, well, it seems to me that the concern about cycling is one of the aspects in our community of people, caring about our health and exercise and wanting to do something about it. From Penny Lane, there are other initiatives that address sort of other human needs. So, for instance, we run a phone service called Good Morning Selsey, addressing the issue of loneliness, whereby each day there are a number of people who receive a phone call, see how they are, share a bit of news, have a chat. And sometimes, particularly at weekends, these are people who don't necessarily see anyone, perhaps apart from a carer or someone who brings their lunch in, for whom life can be quite lonely in that kind of way. So
is this something that they subscribe to, or is it paid for by the community?
We're in a period of a kind of free trial at the moment to see how it goes, both for them and for volunteers. We're combining it with the offer through Selsey Time Bank and Selsey Community Watch of a befriending visit to them on a regular basis. And also the offer, if there are little tasks that they need doing, then someone might be able to help them with that as well. So at the moment it's free. The idea eventually is that we'll charge £10 a year for the service.
So is this an extension of Time Bank idea?
Yes, it's really about people helping other people.
Okay.
And doing things for one another on that basis. Of course, in our community, a lot of this happens just informally anyway. People get on and do it as good neighbours. But this is just trying to make sure that no one's left out of the loop. So on Saturday, I spoke to the daughter of one of these ladies who's in her late 80s. And she lives away, and she was just saying how grateful she is to know that her mum gets this daily phone call, and that if there is any alarm, then she can be phoned and alerted to the fact that her mum didn't answer the phone. And
okay, so that's built into the scheme.
It's built into the scheme, not to rival Careline or any of the other emergency helplines, but just to have a safety net if there is any kind of worry or concern.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So out of the little office in Penny Lane, there are an awful lot of things that that go on. A couple of weeks ago, a caterer came to see me, saying, could we not organise a lunch on Christmas Day for people who might be on their own? And on the 18th of this month, at 6 o'clock, at the council offices, we're actually holding a meeting for any volunteers who want to come to see whether we can organise that.
Okay, brilliant.
So a lot goes on there, yes.
Right, all right. Well, I shall pop in for a cup of coffee.
You'll be most welcome.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
Thank you for that, Mike. Now we'll go over to Mary to tell us what's on in Selsey this week.
Hello, this is Mary Kennedy to tell you what's on over the coming week. Selsey Visually Impaired Club meets at Hanover Close Lounge on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of the month, so their next meeting is on the 9th. Details from Mrs. Bobby Ailing on 602-730. Also on the 9th, the Royal Naval Association's monthly meeting at the Selsey Club in Cox's Road. Details of that from Gavin Roriston on 607485. Selsey Youth Ria have their AGM and one-day conference on the 9th and 10th. And Selsey History Society have their first meeting after the summer break on Thursday the 11th at 7:30 in St Peter's Church Hall. Details from John Mason on 607037. Also on the 11th is the Puzzle Library, open between 10 and 4 at 14 Green Lane. Proceeds from that go to the Snowdrop Trust. Details from Sandy Lewis on 605942. On Saturday the 13th, there will be a flower festival at East Beach Evangelical Church between 10:30 and 4:30, with proceeds going to the Selsey Lifeboats and Snack Shack. Selsey and District Carers have their car boot sale on Sunday the 14th from 7:30 a.m. at the Academy. And some advance notice, Selsey Cinema Club restarts on Monday the 15th, and the Community Choir for 6 weeks starting on Wednesday the 17th. More details about both of those next week.
Thank you for that, Mary. Now we go over to Lynn, who's got a lovely recipe from a lemon mousse.
I've got Lynn, who's during this month is quite clearly on a pudding kick.
Oh, I love my puddings.
Yeah, right, okay.
You can tell
I'm not going to say a word at this point.
You can tell that. You should have said, yes, I know, I can see.
No, I was too much of a gentleman.
Oh, bless you. I do like my puddings. I'd rather have a pudding than a dinner.
Yeah?
Yeah. And today I thought I'd do a lovely lemon mousse. Nice and light.
Right, okay.
Lemon mousse is gorgeous.
Yeah.
So, for this one then, you want 4 medium eggs, 8 ounces or 250 grams if you like of caster sugar, 3 lemons, but you only want the zest and the juice of the lemons. The zest, by the way, is just that little bit of rind that you grate off finally. 5 tablespoons of cold water, about half an ounce of powdered gelatine. You can still buy that in the supermarket, so about half an ounce, that's all, about half a teaspoonful really, not much at all. Half a pint of double cream, here we go again with me, and a small handful of blanched toasted almonds, finely chopped.
Okay.
Nice. So for this then you need an electric whisk, and whisk together the egg yolks, the sugar, the lemon zest and the juice until the sugar is dissolved and the mixture is thickened just a little. If you don't have an electric whisk it by hand in a glass bowl set over a pan of hot water. That helps it to thicken quicker. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, there you go then. When the mixture is thickened, remove the bowl from the pan and whisk it until it's cool.
All right.
Place the cold water into a heavy base saucepan, sprinkle in the gelatine and place over a gentle heat without stirring it, until the gelatine is melted, of course. Remove it from the heat and then you're going to leave it to cool just slightly. In a separate bowl, lightly whip the cream until soft peaks form when the whisk is removed. Stir the mixed gelatine into the cream and fold it into the egg yolk mixture. Are you with me on this? You've gone very quiet, Hugh. Are you with me on this?
You're
visualising it. Whisk the egg whites in a separate bowl with an electric hand whisk until soft beaks form when the whisk is removed. Now this is the yummy bit. Place the bowl with the egg yolks inside a bigger bowl filled with ice cold water. Okay. Gently fold the whipped egg whites into the egg yolk mixture with a metal spoon and stir the mixture until it begins to thicken. And then just pour it straight into a glass bowl and refrigerate for 1 hour until it's set.
All right.
And it's gorgeous lemon mousse. You can't beat it, can you? Nice. And put a little bit more zest in. Chop it up and then chopped almonds over the top. Lovely.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's lemon mousse.
That's lemon mousse.
Okay, fine.
Thank you for that, Lynn. That sounds delicious. And now we finish up with Hugh and Pat discussing the Writers' Circle.
Right, it's Hugh Graham for Selsey Internet Radio, and we've got Pat Reed in the studio this morning, and Pat's one of the queen bees at the Selsey Writers' Circle. I think she's actually the secretary, and if I remember rightly, the Writers' Circle meets on the first Tuesday in every month in the Selsey Club at 2:30. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. I am the secretary. Alex Palmer is the chair lady, and we do meet the first Tuesday of every month at 2:30, and we usually finish at 4:30.
When you say we, how many are you?
It's usually about a dozen of us each month. 2 or 3 of those are men, and most of them are women.
Okay. Are they experienced writers, or are they, or have you got a mixture of published writers and beginners?
I would say that most of them actually are beginners and not experienced writers, but we do have published writers there, some for just articles for magazines. 1 or 2 have published their own novels. Joan Moules, who founded the Writers' Circle, who still comes along, she's now given over her chair to Alex Palmer, but she's had several novels published and is able to give very good advice to people.
She writes romances, doesn't she?
Yes, she does.
Now, tell me, your book, was yours a romance or what?
I'd say that mine was a good holiday read. Probably more for women than men, although I have had quite a few men say that they've enjoyed it. But mine was self-published.
Well, what's the difference between self-publishing and ordinary publishing?
It's quite difficult nowadays to get your book published and be paid money for it to make profit. I decided that I wanted to write a novel. I went down the road of paying to get it self-published. I am very pleased with the outcome, and I did it for me really, but as it happens it's worked out very well, and I've had a lot of feedback from it.
Have you recovered your cost?
Not really. Well, sort of. I didn't do it actually to make a profit, and I think I could have done a lot more to promote it, which I haven't done. But I think if you do self-publish and you're willing to spend an awful lot of time promoting your book, you can probably make a profit. I've probably just about covered costs.
Okay. And would you recommend that as a method to anybody else?
I would. It's lovely seeing your book actually, when that day that it comes through the post and it's all finished and an actual book, it's just wonderful for your own just for your own benefit. And I would recommend it. If you feel that you've done enough for a good read, then I would definitely recommend it.
Okay, but the interesting thing to me in this is, do you not feel that publishing your own book is an admission of failure because you hadn't been accepted by a proper publisher, or maybe you didn't even try?
I suppose it depends on what you want from it. I felt I had a story in my head. When I started, I wasn't quite sure how it was going to end. I didn't feel that it was an admission of failure, because I was quite pleased with it when I finished it.
Well, did you submit it to a conventional publisher?
I did send it to 2 or 3. I'm told that the books that have sold millions were submitted many more times than that, but I was probably a little bit lazy and thought, no, let's get this self-published. But I probably could have carried on and gone down the road of sending it to several more publishers.
Now, you chose to have it paper published, didn't you?
Yes.
But isn't there a new method of introducing books to the public, whereby you have electronic publishing downloaded to either Kindles or iPads?
Yes, I believe.
And they're not printed on paper at all?
That's correct. I'm actually in the middle of looking into this to get mine on Kindle, and to be honest, I'm not quite sure how all this works myself. I can get my book print on demand. If I wanted 20 copies or 100 copies, I just ask for them and they come through the post in a big box, and I can pay for that, and then if I can, then I sell them at a profit. But to get it on Kindle, I think would be a bonus, and it's definitely worth looking into.
Okay.
From what I've heard.
So, the writing that the Writers' Circle does is fiction, non-fiction, presumably novels and biographies and factual or documentary books. What about poetry? What about people who want to write articles for magazines? Does the Circle have writers in all those areas, and if not, why not?
The Writers' Circle just covers everything from poetry, articles in magazines to novels. We usually set a task each month, which you can call homework if you like, asking us to write a manuscript on whatever subject. It can be fiction or non-fiction, it can be poetry. Some months we just have a speaker come along. Next month it's Simon Brett, who is...
He's a thriller writer, isn't he?
He is, yes, and he's very good. And it's at times like that, when you have questions to ask, someone like that can answer your questions and be very helpful when it comes to getting your work published.
He could also be encouraging too, couldn't he?
Very, yes.
Right, so... do you think that the Writers' Circle actually helps aspiring writers?
Yes, it does. But not only that. When we meet for the 2 hours, there's a lot of discussion goes on. It's a very pleasant, laid-back meeting. You don't need to be a brilliant writer. You could just be a complete beginner when you walk through the door. But it is helpful, it gives you confidence, and also when you start reading out your work to other people, I found it very difficult. I didn't think I could do it to start with, but you get used to it, and it's very helpful in that respect in giving you confidence as well.
If you were a new writer, or someone who perhaps was always good at writing essays at school, and someone said, well, why don't you try your hand at writing? Should they begin by going to the Writers' Circle or doing the correspondence course or going to a creative writing degree perhaps in Chichester, or how should they begin?
Well, I can only speak for the Writers' Circle. We've had people that have come in and said, I've never written a thing before, but I just would quite like to. I've got things in my head that I'd like to write. And
have you seen them flourish?
It quite often turns out that those people are very good writers, and you wonder why they thought they couldn't do it.
I think supposedly everybody has got a book in them, I'm told, and certainly you've had your book. Do you think are you writing a new one? Have you started another novel?
Well, actually, I would like to, and people who've read mine, I don't know whether it's because they know me or what, but they've all said, I want to know what's happening next with this, and when are you going to write another one? But it does take an awfully long time to write a novel, and you think you're going to do it when you're retired, but in actual fact I think you have less time when you're retired than when you did the day job. But I would like to, yes, if I had the time.
Do you remember a character called Leslie Charteris who wrote the whole series of the Saint books? Do you ever remember reading any of them?
Well, yes, I think they were also dramatised, weren't they?
They were, and they were books featuring the saint who was actually Simon Templar.
Yeah.
Now, that guy, Leslie Charteris, wrote one book a month. He was producing the staggering sum of 12 novels a year. And you say that writing a novel takes quite a long time. Well, I believe that to be true. So what about someone as prolific as Leslie Charteris? Can you imagine writing one book a month?
Well, before you retire, if you do a full-time job, you do from 9 till 5, and you're disciplined at having to do that. I think if you're wanting to do it for a living and you are able to write, if you discipline yourself to do 9 till 5, which I think I remember Gilly Cooper once saying that she had to do, if you set that sort of time aside for just doing that, then yes, you probably could accomplish that. But I think that when people are doing it for either fun or as a hobby, other things get in the way.
Okay. I remember reading somewhere that a writer before the war, before the Second World War, called John Buchan, got into terrible trouble with his finances and couldn't pay his daughter's school fees. And he wrote, I think the book was called Hunting Tower, and I think he wrote that in a weekend. Do you think you could ever imagine that?
No, I couldn't.
Pat, could I come to the next writer's circle? And it's not going to cost me anything. How many times can I come while I make up my mind?
I think it's 3 months. If you come along for 3 months and you decide then...
But you have to pay £1, surely.
I don't think you do for the first 3 months, but I may be wrong about that. You'd have to ask our lovely treasurer, Nicola Aspin. But even if you pay your £1 for each month you come, it's well worth it. And if you find that it's not for you, then fair enough.
All right, I'm going to see you next Tuesday. Well, the first Tuesday next month.
Well, I look forward to seeing you, Hugh.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
And that's it for this week. Thanks to all our listeners and all our contributors.